It was a real back and forth about who would be on this mission, who wouldn't be on this mission. The Dirty Dozen obviously came to mind. Everybody has a good reason to hate everybody else.
I mean, it's definitely got that, gathering together these kind of misfits. A bunch of our favorite characters, many of whom have never been on screen together, but who all find themselves at the end of the world for one reason or another. And so getting Tormund back in the picture, the Hound and Jon and Beric and Jorah, it's a fun group.
The sequence had been so well conceived on a visual level by Alan and his team. To do that with hundreds of people and weather and visual effects and fire with lots of moving parts and still have that sense of artistry about it, it takes a different level of directing.
3, 2, 1,
Our story is 7 guys on a rock being attacked by whites and trying to tell a clear story of, your task is to defend a perimeter, and as you lose, your perimeter is going to fall back, and how do you kind of hold order against just pure chaos? It's, hurting kittens. It's, you can't see anything except people whacking each other, and it takes some effort to talk to the cast to sort of say, no, the story is, here's a line, and we have to show that it's not being broken or that it is being broken. It was important to create a situation where I'm hoping the audience will think that one of our beloved characters is going to die.
I mean, we wrote it and we were watching it, and I was like, holy shit, Tormund's gonna die. But somehow he managed to override my rational brain and make me think that Tormund was gonna die.
No matter how great your visual effects are or your art department and everything, there's just nothing quite like the real thing if you can find it. Iceland exists, and it's real, and it's cold as hell, and it's beautiful, and there's just nothing like having that reality on screen.
It doesn't look like anywhere else. Half the time it doesn't even look real, and I worry that people are gonna think the blues of those glaciers are some kind of cheap special effect. The more spectacular looking it is, the more difficult it is to shoot there.
I think there's a sort of kick bollock scrambleness to filming out here, where you have such limited daylight and you have conditions which are like this or worse. It just gives it a sense of reality,
In the world of Thrones, it's great coming to these landscapes that just really kind of arc back in time and take you to something very, very brutal and barren.
There's an extent to which nothing ever surprises you on this job anymore, but this, you still can't help but be impressed by this. I mean, it's nuts.
You can't get to this location without literally monster jeeps. It's a hell of a way to go to work.
The Icelandic technical crew for setting up the base camp have to have everything ready, and they have to do that obviously under cover of darkness. So the crew, when they arrive, everything is ready to go.
When we're shooting on the glacier, everyone's got the crampons strapped onto their boots because otherwise you'll slip, and even with the crampons, we had a bunch of guys falling and banging themselves up, but luckily no major injuries this year.
What we had to go through to get the zombie polar bear was writing the zombie polar bear into every season of the show for about 4 seasons.
We thought they'd be so excited to do a zombie bear, and it's kind of like, oh my God, they're serious about doing this fucking zombie bear.
Only to have Bernie and the visual effects guys tell us in the nicest possible way, fuck you, we cannot afford a zombie polar bear. This year made perfect sense that you could have one of these things out there, and we really put our 4 feet down and we said, God damn it, we want a zombie polar bear.
We looked at some of the beats, the way the polar bear in the previews that we got, how it spots the guy's way, how it picks someone up and shakes him around, and then we get our wires in and start rehearsing with guys using different methods to pull someone around and get the right body shapes and the right energy.
Everything's made sure it's super safe first. We test everything over and over again, usually with a weight bag, and when we're happy that it's safe to have someone on, we get someone on.
We were holding the flaming sword in the jaws of this thing, so the big guy was able to move the head around, which was something for our actor on the floor to work against.
I've never really worked with this ping pong ball thing and pretend that's a bear, and I've had people going, oh, when I'll come towards you, I'm a bear. No, you're not. Your name's Toby.
most of the heavy lifting of the sequence. That was all in Wolf Hill Quarry in Belfast.
It's one of those things where, you know, when you film something in another location and then you're responsible for finishing that location off somewhere else, you have to really do your homework and try and make sure that you match it as best you can so that then Alan would have an entrance for the characters. When you stand up on the top and look down, it was like we were building, I don't know, an airport or something. The scale of it is enormous.
We build nature. No, sometimes I walk out there and I think we're crazy people.
We had a really tricky time trying to work out what a frozen lake looks like and how we can achieve that. And that went from a compacted quarry floor to putting concrete down to a nice flat finish, and then there had to be hues of colour that had to be added to that. Then we had to work out how the ice would look, trying to make that look three-dimensional and as if it was transparent ice. All these things were really, really tricky.
Stop!
We paint the cliffs a little bit, and then we snow the cliffs a lot.
3,500 bags of snow through 6 machines with 15 guys. We're constantly redressing it and adding to it, and every day we have to scrape it off and start again the next day. And yeah, it's full on. It's a really cool set. Like, it's an amazing set. They cemented a whole quarry to flatten it out to make it look like an ice lake.
The amount of workmanship is incredible, and I mean, it really, we've had to run across that ice. It just looks so real. It's fantastic.
I thought it was a real lake. Then I understood that they have made this for this sequence. Yeah, it blew my mind.
This amount of people, and when the camera rolls, everything just sort of comes together at precisely the right time.
Original intention was to dig out the areas on location where people would need to fall through the ice. And then it became clear to everyone that probably the temperatures were going to be so terribly cold. We figured out if we use motion control, then we could achieve it on stage.
Where the whites fall for the ice, we're doing those as separate set pieces, and then building rigs to drop underneath the ice to take the weight of the actors and then allow them to drop through.
You know, even though we've got 10 guys falling in while the camera's moving, by the time we're finished, we've got 100 guys falling in and the camera's moving 5 times as far.
Everyone's always like, oh, you get to shoot in a tank, great. No. It's the end of the season and I get plunged into cold water with a full costume on. It's gonna be miserable.
When you're in the middle of a fight, you need to have all your adrenaline on a maximum. So I had to be pumped up and ready in 5 to 10 seconds and then calm the fuck down very fast.
You've got to loosen up. You've got to be ready for a fight. With a big Norwegian and we're both looking at you. Ah! 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 Even the extras are so into it. They're
One of our heroes gets chased to the top of the island. The higher edge is about 11 foot from the frozen lake.
Big trust thing because I'm falling into the guys. The guys are catching me off the end of the rock, opposed to where you'd normally do falls into boxes or an airbag.
Well, it's funny how times have changed. In season 2, the dragon was riding on Danny's shoulder, and now Danny's riding on the dragon's shoulder. And when Danny gets on and off the dragon, it's sort of like wheeling up the stairs to a 747. We've modeled the dragon and then laser cut this full-scale giant piece of polystyrene to create a section of the dragon's back that is living on the island at the frozen lake.
I've got a bit of climbing to do on that contraption with a person on my shoulder. I just hope I can do it. Well, I've never flown a dragon before. I'm sure we'll be fine. Just hang on.
This year, things are a little bit beefier. We have a bigger motion base. We have a bigger buck. It's a lot harder, especially for Amelia. It's one thing to act in a room with somebody and to draw on your considerable resources as an actor. It's another thing to have a situation that's supposed to incorporate the same level of emotion, but in the most artificial environment you can possibly imagine. It's the opposite of walking in costume through Iceland.
You know, the harder the challenge, the more I relish it. But this really, you're like, can I just even maybe have like, you know, like a screen with like clouds or something? Like, I've never flown on a dragon. And to just harness that power, can you even imagine?
The fire column slicing the ice, we wanted to make sure that it looked like a cutting torch, and it's exploding the ice, atomizing the ice immediately. So we worked with Sam's team again, and when you see it, it really is awesome.
We knew that the Night King would see and seize this opportunity, and like to think that when the dragon dies, that it's kind of a nice 1-2 punch, because on the one hand, you're just seeing the horror of one of these the three only unique, amazing beings like this in the world, going under the water and not coming up again, and you're processing that. And then you're processing something that's even worse, which is when it comes back out from under the water again. The eyes of the White Walkers and the Whites have been such a prominent feature of the show, and a lot of work has gone into the specifics of how the eyes look, and to see that hopefully iconic image at this point blown up to the size of a beach ball, that seemed like it was an inherently crowd-pleasingly oh shit moment for everybody.
Let me give you some advice, bastard. Never forget what you are. Wear it like armor. It can never be used to hedge.
When I first heard they were interested in me for a fantasy show, I went, ugh, no.
I had an inkling reading the first book, going, oh my God, this is amazing. This could really kick off.
I was quite young and I had such a big imagination. In those scenes when I was younger, I would really convince myself that I was there and it was happening,
I'd never had any experience of acting before.
I went to a very theatrically based drama school. We did 3 hours of camera training in 3 years. But then my 4th hour in front of a camera was day 1 on Game of Thrones.
My first day on set was Castle Black. My first scene was, there's just a very quick scene where I'm walking down the ramparts, and I was so nervous.
Yeah, I remember my first day on set. Oh my God, I fell off a fucking horse. Jesus, this is my first job. This is like the first thing I ever did, and they stuck me on a horse. Oh, I was falling off the horse trying to act still.
Khaleesi.
Okay, let's do it again, please.
I remember my first scene we shot from the pilot, and that was the king's arrival. The king rides in on horseback, and he has to get off his horse, and his robe was enormous. The horse rides in, he's like, ah, and then, hold, everyone, and then they run in with like a ladder. They help him down, and they run out with the ladder, and then carry on. Oh, here we go.
I vaguely remember it. It was like Sean Bean and Mark Addy and Lena, and I remember being so overwhelmed and terrified.
I remember everybody clearly. I remember baby Sophie and baby Maisie and baby Isaac, and now they're, out there, full grown.
The most shocking scene that I didn't see coming.
Stop him! Stop!
From then on, I started to distrust the show as to whether they'd kill my favorite character or not.
I think the most shocking was probably my death.
The Hodor moment, I couldn't quite believe.
Hold the door! Hold the door!
That was such a sort of, oh my God.
I watched The Red Wedding, and I didn't really read into it in the script of what happened. I think I just did my bit and went la la la, and then when it came out, I remember I watched it in the morning. I'm a big guy, big tough guy, but guess what? I burst into tears. That was an absolute shocker. I remember just watching going, no, 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 what? It was brilliant.
Do I have to call you Lady Stark now?
Yes. My favorite day on set would be the day that I was reunited with Maisie.
That day on set, I've just never laughed so much in my life. It was so much fun. It was the day with the wheelchair. I've still got that video, jeez. Me and Sophie just messing around on Bran's wheelchair.
I think the most fun scene we shot was season 7. We shot this big sequence, the loot train attack, and we shot that in Spain. It was such a beautiful location, and there was something about being outside every day and being on horseback. I love riding.
Go Agades! Season 3, Getting the Unsullied, was the first time that I, Amelia, got to be, you know, like, bitch and badass. Dracarys. It was really cool.
Favorite day on set was definitely a day in Asuna when we were doing the gladiatorial sequence. My little girl was there. You know, she watched the papa work. David said, oh, you know, come sit here, you can call it. And she was like, action!
The fight between the Hound and Brienne of fucking Tarth. We'd studied and trained for that a long time, and when it all came to fruition, that was just fantastic.
Iceland, season 2, the first day we were there. That was my favourite day on Thrones. I'd never been to a more beautiful place in my life, and it was special for so many reasons. It was the scene where I was not able to behead Ygritte.
Strike hard and true, Jon Snow.
My favourite actor to work with was Rose Leslie. There was something really special about working with Rose.
I really, really enjoy working with John Bradley.
You saw this in a vision.
I really enjoyed the scene with Mark Addy way back in season 1, just because it was so intense, and I was like pages and pages long, and it was really unexpected from those two characters.
Sometimes I don't know what holds it together.
Our marriage.
There's an ease that I get with acting with Ian Glenn, because he's been my pal the whole time. There's been my buddy.
And the most beautiful thing about Amelia, she has no idea how good she is. She genuinely has no idea. And she still has no idea. She's always sort of vulnerable, which gives is part of her great gift.
I think in terms of my favourite scene partner, it'd have to be Kit. Kit was the first person I ever had an acting relationship with because it was my first job. I think that the friendships that you form when you are a bit scared and a bit uncertain and treading unfamiliar ground, they're the ones that tend to stick because you cling on to each other for support.
Sansa, come here, little dove.
I always loved working with Lena.
What are you doing? Praying. You're perfect, aren't you? Praying.
Just watching her and learning from her was the best drama lesson I could have ever hoped for.
You disobeyed my king, your father, and now I'm paying the price.
I don't care, you're my friend.
Shireen Baratheon. I had a couple of scenes with Shireen that I loved doing. To have her level of humanity and decency and cleverness and brightness. He just treats her as an equal, and I really like that aspect of the relationship that they had.
I really miss Charles Dance, who played my father, Tywin Lannister. We had such a great chemistry and a great friendship.
Tyrion.
Despite our on-screen relationship. I'm very fortunate to work with the greatest cast. Everybody is so professional and so incredibly kind and generous to their fellow actors.
Everyone involved is like a family, and it's a family that amazingly still laughs and gets on with each other 8, 9 years in.
There's been no assholes, no people, divas, there's been nothing, not even a suggestion.
When it's all said and done, I'll miss the dynamic of the show, because there's nothing like this show.
I mean, Game of Thrones means my 20s.
I started this job when I was 22, and I am not 22 anymore.
Game of Thrones is my entire career. I think I am going to have a hard time saying goodbye to Sam.
It's going to be very hard to say goodbye to play Tyrion.
I will miss simple things like walking on to set for the first time each year in your new bits of costume, and just knowing you're part of something which is sort of at the centre of attention.
Yeah, it's going to be very strange without it. It's been 8 years.
I'll tell you what I won't miss. Walking around with half a fucking beard 3/4 of the year.
That's Jaime Lannister, the Queen's twin brother.
I was like a little puppy when I arrived. I was like Bambi on the ice. And coming to Belfast, I learned how to walk with pride and joy.
I've grown up with these people. I've changed so much as a person because of these people.
I'm so confident. I've just got this confidence from the show and from playing Arya. I really feel like I just want to inject that into each and every person that I know and love, but then also any girl that admires the work that I do.
The journey that I've been on with Daenerys, it's sharpened me as an actor. It's shown me the range that I can do, and because of the heights that she goes to, it's forced me to find them within myself.
Game of Thrones has been such an education for me in everything. Having to be around adults from the age of 10 and work on a professional set, get up and learn your lines and really think about a character has also taught me a lot about myself.
As an actor, you work and work and work and you audition and you don't get parts, and you do get parts, and sometimes they're great experiences and sometimes they're really shitty. And this has been incredible.
Thrones is the holy grail, where it's something that is enormously, globally, massively popular, and people think it's cool.
You know, people are always trying to copy things or do variations of things. It's rare you get something which is a completely original fantasy.
It's the most realistic show that I've ever done that also happens to have dragons and dead people walking around in it. I think a lot of fantasy is heavy on the dragon and light on the character. We're the opposite.
This show will be discovered by generations to come. It's timeless.
Every season there's something else bigger than the last season and better than the last season.
And here we are, season 8.
It's cinematic. We're making 10-hour movies every year.
The fact that this is really a full stop on this story is sad, because I think everyone's been so invested in this story that we never want to see this come to a close. But it must, and it will be good.
Let's go. Keep going, Nick. Keep going. 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 Going. And when he gets to about there, shoot him.
Okay.
Okay. So that means
see, yeah.
let loose.
I kept coming back to the fact that what its nickname is the Battle of the Bastards. This is about two bastards fighting each other. It's basically a pub brawl.
It's really nice to get to sort of have the two bastards there together, facing off. They're so similar, but they're the antithesis of each other.
Ramsay's weapon all the way through is antagonizing people, coaxing them, drawing them into a trap, and Jon completely falls for it.
It's, you know, one guy on one side of the field, another guy on the other side of the field who just get into a punch-up. And the punch-up is what happens in the middle of the field.
You want to fight?
We want them to come together, and we don't really know what we want them to do in the middle, but it's got to be good.
We're trying to capture the madness that this must have been. At any second could be the end of him. It's just a stray blade or a horse falling or a guy, you know, sticking him in the back. And he's barely surviving. We've been choreographing action that should look like it's kicked off in the street. It should look like absolute lunacy. So he's trained the whole thing. It's all going to be him. We're not going to use a double for that. He's got lots of stuff to do.
You've got things happening that are rather kind of epic that you can't shoot in any real meaningful way. You've got a giant pulling a guy out of the crowd and smashing his head with his bare hand. You've got horses crashing into each other.
You can't run two horses together because you kill the horses. It became about marrying real horse falls with the digital world so that we could have a real horse take a fall, and then we could digitally superimpose a second horse, which was a CGI horse that would seem to hit the real horse, causing it to fall in the first place.
You add a new level of danger in with horses. It's not just a fist fight.
We've got people getting slashed in the neck, you know, we've got stomach slashes, we've got axes in heads, we've got all sorts.
The best way to describe Bob is every day they would bring all the extras on board, and I would down to the set, and I would send them back and say, more blood, more mud. And that's all I ever said, is more blood, more mud. And with Kit, it was more blood, more mud. That's all I was going for, is how dirty can we make this war?
I would like to put on record right now that I have had more shit thrown at me than any other actor on this show. I had so much crap on my face. I just wanted to finish by then. I was like, I've loved this, but let's just end. And that was good, again, good for the scene.
Put your sword down and just do this, and it's like you're going to basically punch him in the face. So the next time that I see you, you've made absolute mincemeat of him. We managed to find all these really interesting references and places where we could build the story and make spectacle and keep it about the characters, because in the end, no one cares about, you know, Wildling number 6 dying. What they care about is John going to survive or not, and is he going to whip Ramsay's ass?
Bit higher, Kit, bit higher.
We actually spent an entire day, 10 hours, with Kit on top of Ewan, beating him. And I just shot it from every single angle I possibly could.
I actually did punch Ewan in the face twice by accident.
Got a shield in the chin as well, which I really enjoyed. Jaw hurt a bit the next day. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things when you're doing this kind of thing, and he's got to give it that passion.
Lift your legs up, please, gents. Cuando digamos acción, todos vendréis corriendo hacia acá.
The cool thing about these two episodes is that they are very much thematically linked, in that they deal with rebirth. John comes back into the world naked, as if a baby at Castle Black in the cold. And Danny, naked, as if a child, but merging through fire and ice. And I did a lot of visual research. I looked a lot of Renaissance paintings dealing with the resurrection. And my favorite painter is Caravaggio. Myself and the DP sat down and we talked about how can we emulate that feeling. That's great. So let me just see this action here. Okay, Kit, ready? And action.
Kit talked to us about the need for him to really feel what it feels like to remember your own death and how existentially terrifying that is.
I think I referred to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book on death and dying. And I said, why don't we take that in reverse? Because there's stages of disbelief and bargaining and acceptance. And I said, so let's start there. You wake up and some of the pieces are missing and you don't know where you are. And it becomes a series of discoveries. Where am I? Oh, well, I think I know where I am, and why am I naked? Then he looks down to discover that he has all these wounds. And then all of a sudden the memories start flooding back and panic ensues. So it really becomes sort of, how does John deal with what's happened?
He's been dead, and that's an experience that no one can understand unless it's happened to you, which means no one can understand.
What did you see?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
We go through the entire scene. He walks over to the rope, starts to lift the sword. Cut. We focused on how John would deal with the execution of Ollie.
It all comes back to Ned Stark, you know, the man who passes the sentence, swings the sword. I mean, it's the Northern ethos. John really doesn't want to do this. I mean, he's the justice of it is clear. I mean, these men assassinated the Lord Commander. They need to be executed, but he's the one who passed the sentence, and he's got to swing the sword.
Yeah, we did really drop them. It's always kind of chilling because your initial reaction as the audience is visceral. You know, they're in these harnesses that drop, and it is a little bit of a shock to the system.
You have to loosen this off. Yeah. Loosen the actual dressing rope.
The first time feeling that drop, and the noise of the barrels being pulled back is terrifying when you're standing above it. It feels so real, and that obviously adds to the ability to act terrified during the scene.
Zafra Tower, which is in Guadalajara, Spain. It feels magical.
It almost looks surreal. I want everybody to know that it's real and that visual effects didn't do anything to it.
I remember sitting there on set reading on the history of this building, the way it was built against the Moors, and then the Moors took it, and then it was used in Spaniards fighting Spaniards, and all this brutal and bloody Thronesy history that was taking place right on the spot we were standing. Fights like the fight we were watching were happening probably where we were shooting this very fight.
Certainly they've done a lot of sword fights in this series. The question was, how would I make it different? I stumbled upon a Sergio Leone movie called Once Upon a Time in the West. And it's all about creating tension through anticipation of what's to come. And I thought, that's the key to this. You would see this tower and horses on a plain, and then you would start to hear the sound of a stone on a blade of a broadsword. It would sort of sync in rhythms with a horse's hooves, and then you would see these powerful horse's hooves. And then you would cut to a gleaming knight's helmet. And little by little, tease the audience into a sense that a mythic event is about to happen.
And now it begins.
Now it ends.
David and Dan wanted the flashiest swordsman in the whole of the Game of Thrones world.
Sir Arthur Dayne is a legendary member of the Kingsguard under the Mad King, and reputed by many to be the greatest sword fighter in the history of the Seven Kingdoms.
He has two swords. He's got his own traditional sword, and he's also got the Dawn, which is basically his pride and joy, which is this sort of white blade.
It was really tricky to choreograph and execute and film a very complicated sword fight and make all of the cuts and all of the parries and all the defenses and all of the kills look real and convincing while being flashed.
You stabbed him in the back.
The second part of it that made it a little trickier was that it is part of Bran's vision.
He's got many faces. I look forward to seeing this one.
Favorite death of the series?
Oh. It's difficult. Sean's was amazing because it was just so shocking because no one knew that they were going to kill off main characters. But my favorite death is probably Oberyn Martell's, the skull crushing. That was pretty spectacular.
When Oberyn Martell got his head squished. Loved that scene. So sad though, because I miss Pedro. I think he's coming tonight. No, I don't think he is. Maybe. If he is, I'll be like,
Prince Oberyn's. That was so shocking. Not only in terms of the brutality of it, but in terms of the fact that I really didn't see it coming. I hadn't read the script for that episode, and it was one of those classic Game of Thrones moments where you think, oh, the underdog's winning. Oh, no, he's had his head squished.
Charles dance on the toilet. Thank you.
Stop watching it, man. That's scary.
Was that as emotional for you?
It was, and I definitely cried the first time I watched it. It's very different watching it back than it is doing it at the time. Yeah, I still get teary when I watch it sometimes, although I don't watch it very often. I do, but I mean, it's weird to watch yourself, you know. I like to watch people's reactions better. I mean, I watched a lot of people's reaction to Hodor dying, and that really actually moved me.
I think there were two. The first was Sean Bean, Ned Stark, because even while we were filming it, I kept thinking, oh, someone will save him. And then the second one was Hodor. I never saw that coming either. I was like, what?
Favorite deaths? Hodor. I mean, that's not just a favorite death, but probably my favorite scene in the entire series so far. Just the way it was put together, you know, intercutting his death with, you know, the scenes of him as a child. Very emotional, hard-hitting, devastating. And Ned Stark, same reason. Hard-hitting, but, you know, extremely heartbreaking. So I like seeing good guys die, I guess.
My little girl, Shireen. That was heartbreaking. I cried when I read that in my little room at home when I had the pages open. I went, I hoped that it was a joke. A horrible thing to happen, but incredibly dramatic as regards to our storytelling.
I think probably Joffrey's, you know, those eyes, you know, the strangulation, the going red. It was I thought it was such a brilliantly acted.
It's something we hadn't necessarily done before, and it's like almost everything we do with prosthetics. It's all trial and error. We had to devise a way of removing the top outer skin of this disease and having an underlayer beneath which could bleed, and we'd have pus and various gooey things. And I think we had a team of 4 applying this body makeup.
My call, I was picked up at the hotel at 1:45 in the morning. And it was 5 or 6 hours to get the full top body prosthetic done.
And stand by to rip, please. Ripping in 3, 2, 1, rip.
The Gates of Dragonstone. It's probably going to be on film for about 30 seconds, but so much detail and work went into this set.
2 giant dragon heads were carved by our sculpting team. With the most beautiful, big, massive doors that were designed and built here.
The locations in Spain, you know, had that very strong rock formation, that very strong strated look.
And we were able to bring in those beautiful geological formations in those side corridors.
We had to use the rocks from the location. We sent out a team of plasterers to Spain. They took impressions of the stone. And from those, we created moulds, and we used those rocky shapes to create the shapes of the corridors in the cave. There's that kind of physical, geological journey that we were able to design. And then that all culminated in the throne room, where we had to create like a new architecture. It's a lot of work. It was very, very labour intensive.
I can do without looking.
Looks brilliant. It's going to be dramatic.
Yeah, it's really dramatic. Yeah, the angles are fantastic.
Dragonstone, of course, had been established in previous seasons before I came, so we had the Dragonstone map room, so it was already established as a cave-like space. So I wanted this set to sort of start in the cave and grow out of it. And then we were able to bring in those beautiful geological formations in that throne, you know, the Dragonstone throne, which I think is, you know, a really powerful sort of statement.
The only directions we gave her was that it should be quite imposing and intimidating, and that the throne would be carved out of the rock, and that was it. And, like, that's all we gave her, and then she went to town with that. The first time we saw it all lit for a scene, That was pretty dramatic.
As we were building it, people would walk through this set and they would feel, I feel very uncomfortable here. It's not a room where I want to spend a lot of time. So it was a new approach to an audience chamber, which was not welcoming people in. It was basically making people feel uneasy and intimidated.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the best set we've ever built.
It was really impressive. We couldn't wait to shoot it.
The audience chamber is incredible. One of the most staggering sets that I've had the privilege of being in.
Every moment of that journey from the ship to the place where she's actually going to stand and plan her conquest, there's a different flavor to each one of those moments.
And you realize this place where she was born, there was a whole culture there, there's a whole world there. And you get a real taste of it and the uniqueness of it. And the coming home is really very dramatic.
Shall we begin?
The beat drops out.
On the stage today, and I mean that literally, we have Daenerys, we have Cersei, we have Jon Snow, we have Tyrion, to name but a few, all very much on the edge of something disastrous happening.
The mood is somber. It's, you know, world leaders uniting and disagreeing about how the world should be run.
It can go south very quickly, and that's the brilliant part of that, the sequence, because you know how quickly things can turn on this show.
It's a potential powder keg. So no matter what's happening, no matter who's meeting who, the potential for things to completely explode is always there.
The Dragon Pit is probably one of the most essential sequences in all of Game of Thrones.
Tyrion and his posse, they know they're entering a dangerous place, and they know they're taking a risk coming here.
You have 60+ hours at this point of main characters who you are really invested in, and it's enjoyable to put people together who haven't been together before and see how they would react to each other.
It's people becoming aware of the smallness, I think, in their nature. No matter how much they fight each other, there's a bigger threat to life than just who's on the throne.
You can say to anyone, you know, this disease is coming, but until you can show them evidence, they won't get past their own smaller problems to fight the big problem.
These things build over time, you know. It takes 70 hours to get to this point. It takes 70 hours for the story to allow this scene to happen.
There's a momentum that's up now which doesn't stop. So that's really exciting.
It's incredible because I am the new kid on the block. And I've seen these guys for 6 seasons now. Then all of a sudden being part of the scene. I think this is going to be one of the scenes of this season.
The Dragon Pit epitomizes the central challenge of Season 7, where we have, I don't know, a dozen of our principal characters all in the same place, many of whom haven't seen each other since a very dramatic incident years before between them. So that scene was incredibly tricky to write and incredibly tricky to film.
You want to be able to service all of these characters, and that was tremendously fun to plot out.
Conflicts between people, friendships between people, which ones you wanted to highlight and which ones that you're going to have to let fall by the wayside.
You have, you know, it seems like dozens of little mini scenes. So we had to find great moments and character interactions and story for all of these characters.
It was just so much fun to write for all these guys together. It kind of forced us to really explore what the different tonal variations were in those reunions.
You know, it's trying to keep an eye on what they're all there for. I mean, they're all there for a reason, which is to discuss the possibility of an alliance and whether that's even possible with these people who have so many reasons for hating each other and so few reasons for trusting each other.
Welcome, my lords.
For Pod to see Tyrion, I mean, that guy was the most important person in the world to him. He was the only person who'd given him a chance.
I'm glad you're alive.
There's something very sweet in it. And amongst all the big stuff, the small stuff still happens as well, and that's what adds to the texture of the show, I think. That stuff's never forgotten about.
What's in there? Fuck off.
There's a really wonderful moment where Brienne spies the Hound. And she realizes that she has to sort of apologize, maybe? maybe, for nearly killing him. Maybe. But she also brings to him the news that she knows he wants to hear, that Arya is alive and Arya's home.
Oh, that was a relief. Yeah, of course. And a concern, is she all right?
Who's protecting her if you're here?
The only one that needs protecting is the one that gets in her way.
And then it turns out that we don't need to worry about Arya, because I've taught her everything.
What I love about Tyrion and Bronn's relationship is they know exactly who they are. Tyrion prods him a little bit about how much Bronn is doing things out of self-interest.
Don't you worry about me, I'm doing all right. Looking after myself.
Are you? Helping me to arrange this meeting wasn't exactly looking after yourself, was it?
It's your head Queen Cersei's offered a bag of gold for us, not mine.
Knocks on his tin heart a little bit. Knows there's something in there.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
You have Cersei seeing Tyrion for the first time in a long time, her mortal enemy. So the first time they lock eyes when she walks in, that's a moment.
It's really awkward. It's like I know family reunions for everyone are very awkward, but let's just say the Lannisters are a complicated bunch.
She's held him responsible for the death of her mother and the death of Joffrey and her father. You know, she can't really take responsibility or deal with her own grief. She has to just blame everybody else, and that's part of her pain too.
Lena gives me a look that I never want to see ever again. It's, yeah, it almost flattened me. I wanted to hide.
Met my brother. That was good. I had a standoff with him, which was great fun. That was great. Ignoring a very serious situation, the Hound just goes straight to him and goes, basically, you and me, pal, we haven't finished. You're getting it.
There's a non-verbal 4 or 5 second thing between Cersei, Jaime, and Brienne. That's not even a line of dialogue. It's just a little mini scene built out of looks.
It's sort of like one of the worst things that happens to you at school. I think it's Brienne's idea of absolute abject hell. Fighting the Hound wasn't abject hell, but a moment of having to deal with Jaime and Cersei is the most excruciating thing that could possibly happen to Brienne. She arrives with the Mountain and Jaime and like you say, the Kingsguard, and she's, you know, pretty fierce. And then she realizes that Dany isn't here, and that pisses her off, obviously. And then, of course, Dany arrives on Dragon.
You know, I take Fashionably Late to brand new heights.
She's very theatrical with her entrance, though. Yeah. It's kind of funny that you go, wow, she really has to show off her power, but fair enough.
And she tries desperately to not be impressed by that arrival, and everyone else, obviously, as you would, is standing up in awe of this. And then, you know, in walks this young beauty of a queen, and she's immediately beyond frustrated on many levels.
We've been here for some time. My apologies.
And then all she gets from Dany is apologies, you know, and that then drives her in the scene. She can't bear it.
We have something to show you.
Well, for me, being a horror nerd, I was slightly giggly, so I was like, my very own zombie. She has never, ever seen anything like this before, and this is a creature that defies her. This is a creature she doesn't know how to disable. She doesn't know how to kill. This is something else.
Daenerys has seen it, and she's aware of it, and it's frightening, but she is just watching Cersei. Like, she just needs to know that this has affected her.
You know, she's always had that notion of creatures like this, that they don't exist, and it's nonsense. And so I think when he's there, she's back as a kid, just, you know, realizing everything her grandma, her nannies told her was real. She's staring into a face that she never thought existed.
For Jaime, this is like definite proof that there is no choice. Clearly, this thing, we have to deal with this, and he believes them all. He believes his brother, but he also believes Daenerys and Jon Snow when they say that they saw 100,000 of these beings.
That's where his head is. You know, the world could end in 5 minutes, but he is absolutely one-pointed, focused on, I have never seen this before. This is amazing. I could really do things with this, you know.
There's this beat in the scene that I really love, because I have a line where he's like, he's just seen the White Walker, just died, and he realizes this is the first thing he's ever seen that terrifies him. And that's like a new emotion for him. You know, like, oh, that was an interesting feeling.
I'm going back to my island. You should go back to yours. When winter's over, we'll be the only ones left alive.
And then it all rests. Her dragon's death, everything rests on Jon Snow just lying.
The Crown accepts your truce. In return, the King in the North will extend this truce. He will remain in the North where he belongs. He will not take up arms against the Lannisters. He will not choose sides.
They've got a plan of action. And then it all kind of falls apart with Jon's honor again.
It's like, come on, dude. Like, it's all you gotta do. Just this one time, just tell a fib, and he can't. He just can't. Like, that was the bad move. That was a bad choice, but thanks so much.
I am true to my word. Or I try to be. That is why I cannot give you what you ask. I cannot serve two queens.
Tyrion, knowing his sisters so well, knows that that's not going to go over well. And of course, it doesn't. And when Jon does that, the whole thing crumbles. So it's sort of like, I get it, but
Then there is nothing left to discuss.
It is so much fun with all of us all together.
Having been isolated for so long, and then suddenly, boom, I'm working with everybody. It was quite kind of event for me. I loved it.
It's lovely. It's all of us being together. So we're all kind of, you know.
that was really exciting because we are all just a big happy family. And that extended to after work, unfortunately, because we had way too much fun.
You know, usually you're like here, you're on set, and then you have a couple of other actors to hang out with. Suddenly we were like 10, 15 at the same hotel. It was just a recipe for disaster. But it was fun, though.
Having been so invested in the show for so long, for so many years, it's just so thrilling. And I was personally very excited to finally meet Daenerys.
And I hope for the fans that they see a satisfying realization of what I think they've all been maybe waiting for, is for these worlds to be collided.
Those 10 days were 10 of the most enjoyable days I've ever spent doing this show, because it's all these people having such an excellent time just being in each other's company. I will never forget those days on that set. They were outstanding.
Hurry up, this pie is dry. Oh, come on, eat it.
I'm a Khaleesi, not a queen. Sake, mate.
Two, one.
You don't party?
Oh, I partook. Now I'm married. Prince Oberyn, if I may, a word in private.
When would the wedding... When would the wedding take place, in your mind?
Can't remember.
Fun is it to torture Alfie Allen?
Well, it's on television, so I'm not really actually torturing him, but
No, it's good fun. I mean, Alfie's a brilliant guy, and he's really...
Alfie's fans will be relieved to hear that. There's no actual physical... No Alfie Allens were harmed in the making of this show.
Yeah, he still has a penis.
Hodor should win the throne, I think, because he's got good leadership qualities and sound political policy. So I think he'd be a very good leader.
Hodor!
Arya Stark hasn't been seen since her father was killed. What do you think happened to her? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
Prince Oberyn, forgive the intrusion.
Hate's a good as reason to hate. Oh.
For that, I have line.
Line?
Line. It's a funny line, sorry. What's the punishment for regicide? Drawing and quartering? Beheading.
What did you discuss?
Sorry.
He needs to learn how to swing a sword, how to...
Oh, they...
Have you been drinking again? Hey, are you drunk?
Look at the sword.
Let's go down here to the right side. Oh, there's someone way at the back. Oh, on the left-hand side. Oh, there's a microphone in the stands. Cool.
Hi, this question is for Ms. Headley. About 6 weeks ago...
oh my God, don't tell that story.
It's over between you guys. Just, come on.
Just get out!
Just get over her.
Leave me alone.
I can't believe he's here. Give it a break, man.
About 6 weeks ago...
So I'm a little bit behind, so can you help me? I know it's season 4 and I'm like an old man, haven't caught up with technology on Game of Thrones.
I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour. Yeah. Season 2, home burnt down, leaves home.
Oh, this is
Season
terrible.
3, walks through forest, meets new character, starts morphing into animals.
Right.
Okay.
That's cool. Gee, that's a great stuff. You're a pro at this business.
Dun 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 dun.
La 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 la.
Dun 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 dun. It's like dun 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 dun.
Little do you know, it's actually me.
You little birds get a message to the good masters of Astapor, the wise masters of Yonkai, and the benevolent enslavers of... Fuck, I had it too. And the benevolent... Sorry, ready? Tell me. Fuck me. Benevolent. Ah, it sucks. The benevolent enslavers of fuck. And the good friends in Volantis. No, these are.
Oh, fucking hell!
Missandei. Missandei, right? Missandei. Melisandre. Missandei. David Benioff.
It's a pretty song. I've never heard it before.
It's a new one.
Ed Sheeran's got the beautiful voice, and we knew he was a fan of the show, and we knew that Maisie was obsessed with him. So we always thought it would be fun to try to get him into a Maisie scene at some point.
When I first got the scene and I saw I was a Lannister soldier and it was with Maisie, I just assumed we'd all get killed at the end. Action.
I don't want to steal your food.
You're not stealing, we're offering. Come on, it's going to be a cold night.
Just a nice moment for her to really enjoy human company without lies and trickery.
But I think the underlying theme is that, as in any war, the soldiers are just people and we are young boys.
She really enjoys just hearing their stories and finding a bit of normality again.
And I think she kind of realises that she can just kind of
chill, let our guard down, have some food, and crack some jokes.
So why is a nice girl on our own heading to King's Landing?
I'm going to kill the Queen.
And then to High Garden?
Then you go High Garden.
What is this?
It's what we've been waiting for our whole lives.
Shooting that map room scene was a really big thing, and very extensive conversations with Lena and Nikolai about that.
You afraid of me?
Should I be?
There's a great amount of need for revenge for her. Enemies to the south. It's like she needs to put everything to sleep that causes her pain. Enemies to the north.
And she's now just on this very driven, focused path to world domination.
And of course we're introducing this whole new set, which is in this courtyard in the Red Keep, where there's a hand-painted map. Of course you want to show this incredible thing, and also it has great metaphorical value. There she is walking all over the known world when thinking about, ruling it. So you kind of want to do justice to that aspect of it as well.
We thought that a painted map on the ground, that seemed like a good idea.
Enemies everywhere. We're surrounded by traitors.
We knew that Jim Staines, the graphic designer, would create something amazing, and he worked so hard on it.
We wanted to have some allusion to the opening title sequence, and that just meant using some of the lettering, some of the imagery, and coming up with good colors, and then working it out basically on a computer. Then we had an image which we could print out, which was the right size. Had to do pseudo-medieval drawings of towns, lots of lettering, lots of conversation with the designer especially. Then we had two guys come in, Dave Packard and Greg Winters, who came in to actually paint the image that I had designed onto the floor.
The man who is firmly but politely dismissed at the beginning of the scene by Jaime Lannister is indeed Jim Staines, who designed and created the map to begin with.
I don't think being down on his knees for quite so long was as much fun as he thought it would be, but he did well.
Very nice. Lovely. Okay, moving on.
Of what they are to each other, I don't know how that's gonna. I think kind of might be the reaction.
I like looking at it and going, oh God, I'm sorry, let's go again. Yeah, I think they both know it's wrong. I think they both know it's going to cause problems. But it's that thing, when you suddenly feel that deeply about someone and you go through those events together, it's like a runaway train. You can't stop it happening.
Father, Smith, warrior.
To see that actually these were two people in love, and that this whole thing that started off the series of Game of Thrones, Robert's Rebellion, was a total lie, is kind of like, man. And what's going to be interesting is, for Bran, it's like, what am I going to do with this? Because just as everything was coming together, everyone was going to join together to fight, inevitably Game of Thrones will tear us apart once more.
It's dangerous for everybody involved. I'm sure it's good for both of them in the moment, but you don't even get the relief of how beautiful it could be or should be. It's not good. But it should be, but it's not. It's Game of Thrones. There's a long history of romance not ending well on this show.
Proper wine for proper heroes. Yeah. Maybe I'm not the most pleasant man, I'll admit it, but
It's always interesting when you're starting a new season, and the question always is, what do you start with? You either start with something small to kind of ease your way in, or you just start with something huge and get it over with, and you can put that behind you. In this case, we started with something really huge.
Okay, everybody starting out there, and action.
that was your mistake. Leave one wolf alive, and the sheep are never safe.
And I love that scene, because you come into this and you're like, wait a second, Walder Frey's dead. How is this possible? What's going on?
I was thrilled that they'd made a full head prosthetic, which fitted my face, but I looked like David Bradley. As an actor, to really reveal yourself and take another face off your face rather than just pretend, that just made it a lot easier and a lot more fun, I guess.
It's the actors just kind of pulling on their own skin, really. And then it's really done in cuts, where the arm movement and where you place the camera, having Walter Frey do that, and then having Arya repeat that, but from a different camera angle that looks like something's come off, and it's very effective. What makes it extremely effective is Maisie's performance, because she just sells it so beautifully. And I love the moment when she turns to Walter's wife and says,
When people ask you what happened here, tell them the North remembers.
I think it's a great opener for the season. I think it's a great reintroduction to Arya, where she's coming from and where she's heading.
She realizes her power, and I guess, yeah, maybe there is the argument that you didn't have to kill the whole Frey army, but they weren't good news. I don't think we'll miss them.
I think, starting with the Army of the Dead, basically why that's really important is that this is the common enemy. This is like the bottom line. This is what everybody in the end is going to have to face. It's the enemy that is beyond all enemies. It's like the one thing that nobody really knows how to fight. And so the big question is, are these people going to get their act together? Are they going to figure out a way to fight the big enemy, or are they going to just eat each other alive before that even happens?
So the Zombie Giants this year, we've got 2 returning cast. We've got Ian White and we've got Neil Fingleton, who was with us on season 4. They're similar makeups, but we have kind of interchangeable little bits and pieces, and we do a slightly different paint scheme. They can have different costume as well. So it's creating 4 different looks. So for the Whites, this year we decided that we'd up our game a little bit, and we've resculpted an awful lot of the zombies, their makeups. They're still very mix and match and generic, because we have a huge amount of stunt guys, but we just thought we would change things up and improve some of the sculpts. It's been a huge production line, but it's something we were able to use a few existing molds and then make a load of new stuff as well.
Seymour.
There is some fun to be had, I think, in seeing Sam in this new environment where, he really came here to the kind of tower of knowledge to learn the secrets of the known and unknown world. And he's really just, a cog in this machine.
Sam has quite a miserable time. A man's dreams not matching up to the reality.
We don't lean on montage that often in the show, partly because montages, to do them right, take a lot of time and a lot of resources. Bernie came to us at one point and she said, we've got 3.5 days scheduled for this montage, which is a long time to shoot what is maybe a 2-minute montage.
In the end, when we cut the scene together, it was hilarious.
Going back to a place that created you and that was the beginning of you and the end of your family is kind of epic.
Dany coming home was a really interesting sequence, and I think what was really lovely was that doing it for Game of Thrones, you're doing a sequence like that, you can really do it properly. Like, you can really take your time with it. You can really give it its due as a real moment.
Because there's no dialogue, it puts more weight on Emilia, who's doing all of this with her face and her actions and her movement. It puts a lot of weight on the art department because the place itself is really the other main character.
The space has to be something that Daenerys feels very connected to, where everything that she's heard about is suddenly somehow in front of her.
That was exciting to do, and locations that we shot in Spain for it were absolutely stunningly beautiful.
We had to find somewhere that had a certain weight and power to it. And when we arrived at Zumaia Beach, the geological formations there are so unique and so special and so interesting that they have a weight to them that I think none of us could ignore.
Actually, quite often, we have to split location for the same scene. The end result was that we decided that we could do most of what we wanted to do in 2 locations, split between Spain and Northern Ireland.
The arrival is shot in Zumaia. You then get up onto the platform, go up a set of stairs, and then we're on stage here in Belfast. And then once she goes through those doors here, then you pick her up again in San Juan, where she goes up the steps to the castle. Those locations together informed for me the whole design of Dragonstone. And it all came from those really unique rock formations, which are so special.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
How you doing, man? You look good. Very tuned. Are you gonna call your mom? I'm not very tall, am I?
Literally flipping through, just been like trying to read it as quickly
And yeah,
as
as soon as you get them in, you get the text message being like, have you got up to episode? What page are you on? Did you get that bit?
Game of Minds!
I like it.
You will hear the death throes of a major character on the show, and you have to guess which character it was that died.
Okay.
Let's hear moan number 1.
Ow!
Oh, is that one of the Night's Watch?
No, it is not. Imagine a man's head getting crushed like a watermelon.
Oh, it's Oberyn Martell.
Yes.
That's the one. Hey,
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
I like that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Peter Dinklage, Game of Thrones.
Thank you.
Thanks. I was talking to my mother in Jersey before I came out, and she said, have fun, but have you seen Mildred Pierce? Guy Pearce is so good, he's gonna win.
Noise that you hate.
Noise that I hate. I don't know. Probably just someone crying. Rise? Rise? Yeah?
Can your little birds get a message to the good masters of Astapor, the wise masters of Yonkai, and the benevolent? Tell me, can your little birds get a message to the good masters of Astapor, the wise masters of Yonkai, and the benevolent? Fuck me, guys.
And he just went after. It just went off after about a third of the film. And then when it came out, we were saying, oh, you should have been in it longer. And the director said, John Frankenheimer, he said, oh, I wish we would have kept you in longer. I said, why didn't you then? He said, wouldn't it be great, Sean, it'd have been in longer? Yeah, fucking would.
If you think I don't have a smartphone, what did you think I was filing off of? This is just my phone in case I forget my name. It happens.
Walkers when I'm in a hurry, getting the runs after eating a curry. Posted a picture, got no likes, slightly overcooking rice. Every time I shave I get hairier, unexpected item in the bagging area. Stepped on a Lego brick in the dark, and now I feel sadder than Sansa Stark. Earphones tangled in my bag, a Facebook photo I didn't want tagged. Drivers who don't hold door. Hold door, hold door, 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 hold door.
So we're lucky.
I haven't done a lot of set.
No.
I haven't done a lot of set, no, just been freezing my ass off in Iceland.
Yeah. I've been baking my ass off in Morocco.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. I just wanted to ask you guys, what's one of your favorite parts about being on the show?
Lena.
Really? Really?
Sometimes I think, the process of writing is not terribly different than the process of being psychotic,
That's great.
so that really keeps it fresh, Alina was saying, you know. And they're amazing, you know, actors from England.
It was a baby. A baby was born during the Game of Thrones.
Definitely conceived.
I used to love her romantic comedies 10 years ago.
When I was funny and romantic.
Fucked up all of my Dothraki.
I'm fucking Septum. What was I supposed to say? I don't believe in you, Seren. Bastard.
Tell me, can your little birds get a message to the good masters of Astapor, the wise masters of Yonkai, the benevolent enslavers of Fakish?
No! No! No!
But now that I am imagining
Maybe you ought to put on a dress.
To thank the gods for bringing to an end the recent...
You made a sacred vow.
I was trying to go back. Oh, no.
Yes, am I ready?